Beneath the faded, painted lines of a completely ordinary municipal parking lot in Leicester, a 500-year-old secret was waiting to detonate. Every day, commuters parked their cars and walked right over the site, completely unaware of the deep history buried beneath their feet. For over 5 centuries, King Richard III's narrative was dictated by the victors. Struck down at the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485, the last English king to perish in combat, his unclothed body was slung over a horse, paraded through the streets in ultimate humiliation, and dumped into a hastily dug grave at a local monastery. Decades later, during the Reformation, the monastery was obliterated. Its stones were carted away, the land was paved over, and the exact location of the fallen king's grave vanished from human memory. While time erased his burial site, a calculated political propaganda machine worked to erase his humanity. The Tudor dynasty, which seized power over his dead body, needed to legitimize their questionable claim to the throne. They transformed the dead king into a mythological demon. William Shakespeare immortalized Richard III as a venomous, hunchbacked monster, a ruthless tyrant who murdered his own nephews, the princes in the Tower, simply to steal the crown. For hundreds of years, this dark caricature was the accepted truth. Until modern forensics, ground-penetrating radar, and the uncompromising, unbribable precision of ancient DNA analysis stepped in to tear that 500-year-old narrative apart. The resurrection of King Richard III began with the obsessive hunch of historian Philippa Langley. After years meticulously overlaying ancient medieval maps with modern city grids, her research stubbornly pointed to that unremarkable asphalt parking lot. The academic establishment initially dismissed her theory as a fantasy. But in August 2012, an archaeological team from the University of Leicester broke ground. Armed with ground-penetrating radar and historical records, the team carefully mapped out the site. They cut a neat trench right through the hard asphalt, digging into the dense clay below. On the very first day of the excavation, the team struck human bone. As archaeologists painstakingly brushed away centuries of compacted dirt, a chilling forensic narrative emerged. The remains, designated Skeleton 1, were found in a shockingly crude grave. Dug too short for the body, the head was awkwardly propped up against the dirt wall. The hands were crossed closely at the wrists, strongly suggesting they had been tightly bound. This was not the solemn burial of an anointed monarch. It was the hasty, disrespectful disposal of a hated enemy. The forensic pathology revealed the harsh reality of medieval combat. The skeleton belonged to a man in his early 30s, aligning perfectly with Richard, who was 32. The skull showed clear evidence of battle injuries. Multiple wounds indicated he had lost his helmet in the chaos of the battlefield and was swarmed by opposing foot soldiers, leading to his fatal fall. But the defining physical feature linking this battered skeleton to the legendary king was the spine. The vertebral column exhibited a severe, twisting lateral curve. It was a textbook case of adolescent-onset scoliosis. The curvature was so pronounced that his right shoulder would sit noticeably higher than his left, placing immense pressure on his internal organs. Suddenly, the famous Tudor propaganda began to unravel. Shakespeare's bunch-backed toad was a cruel theatrical exaggeration, but it was rooted in a genuine, painful medical reality. Richard was not a deformed monster. He was a severely disabled young man who remarkably managed to wear heavy plate armor, ride a powerful warhorse, and fight fiercely until his final breath. However, battle wounds and a curved spine are only circumstantial evidence. To prove with absolute scientific certainty they had found the last Plantagenet king, the team needed to extract a genetic fingerprint from bones soaking in wet clay for 527 years. Extracting usable DNA from 500-year-old, heavily degraded bones is a monumental challenge, where a single stray hair could ruin the entire sequence. To bypass this, scientists isolate mitochondrial DNA, a unique genetic signature passed exclusively from mother to offspring, creating an unbroken female lineage across thousands of years. Richard III left no surviving legitimate heirs, but he had an older sister, Anne of York. Through a staggering feat of historical detective work, genealogists traced Anne's direct female lineage, from mother to daughter, through 17 generations, spanning 500 years of chaotic history. Against all odds, they located a living descendant, Michael Ibsen, a Canadian-born furniture maker in London. Ibsen provided a cheek swab. The laboratory sequenced his modern mitochondrial DNA and placed it next to the highly fragmented ancient DNA extracted from the skeleton. The computer generated the results. It was a flawless, undeniable match. The specific sequence they shared, haplogroup J1C2C, is incredibly rare. The statistical probability of a random body in that exact location having that rare maternal signature, severe scoliosis, and matching battle wounds was approaching 0. The scientific establishment announced it to the world. The parking lot ghost was definitively King Richard III. But the scientific method demands absolute rigor. While the maternal DNA proved his identity, researchers decided to run one final test to verify his royal lineage. They turned to the Y chromosome. Just as mitochondrial DNA is passed from mother to offspring, the Y chromosome is passed exclusively from father to son. For the Plantagenet dynasty, the royal house ruling England for over 300 years, this paternal line was everything. Their divine right to the crown and their justification for the Wars of the Roses was based entirely on an unbroken, pure bloodline stretching back from father to son. Geneticists extracted Richard's ancient Y chromosome. They then tracked down living, documented male line descendants of the Somerset family, who traced their lineage directly back to King Edward III, Richard's great-great-grandfather. Theoretically, Richard and these modern aristocrats shared the exact same paternal ancestor. Therefore, their Y chromosomes should have been a perfect, seamless match. The data came back. The scientists stared at the screens in disbelief. It was a total, complete, absolute mismatch. Richard's Y chromosome did not match his modern royal relatives. Somewhere in the 19 generations separating them, the male line had been entirely broken. This wasn't a minor genetic mutation or an administrative error. In the cold language of genetics, it is called a false paternity event. In the language of history, it is called adultery, illegitimacy, and a colossal royal lie. At some point in this highly revered family tree, a queen or noblewoman had an heir with a man who was not her husband. That illegitimate heir was raised as a pure-blooded royal descendant, seamlessly passing the fake bloodline down through history. This single genetic mismatch, published in Nature Communications in 2014, cast a terrifying shadow over the British monarchy. While the DNA cannot pinpoint exactly where the affair happened, the implications are staggering. If the break happened early in the tree, Richard III, his brother King Edward IV, and the famous princes in the Tower were not biological Plantagenets. It means the House of York fought a devastating civil war for a crown they had no genetic right to claim. The foundation of their absolute power was built on a complete biological illusion. This revelation fundamentally changes how we view the most infamous mystery of Richard's reign, the princes in the Tower. History claims Richard locked his nephews in the Tower of London and murdered them to secure his throne. But historically, Richard took the throne using a legal loophole, claiming his brother's marriage was invalid. He didn't necessarily need to eliminate them. Legally, they were already stripped of their royal rights. So who had the real motive? The genetic data forces us to look at the man who actually won the war, Henry VII, founder of the Tudor dynasty. Henry seized the crown by force, but his blood claim was incredibly weak. To secure his power, he married the sister of the princes. If those two were still alive, the entire country knew they had a stronger claim than Henry. Henry VII would lose everything if they survived. He had everything to gain by quietly eliminating them and unleashing a massive propaganda campaign to blame the dead king. History is a fragile construct, largely written by those who survived to hold the pen. For centuries, we comfortably accepted the narrative of the monstrous villain and the divine, pure-blooded kings. But the cold clay beneath a parking lot proved that bones and chromosomes do not care about political propaganda. The DNA of Richard III solved his disappearance, humanized his physical suffering, and exposed the fraudulent structure of royal supremacy. It proved that sometimes the most earth-shattering secrets aren't hidden in impenetrable castles or classified archives. They are buried right under our feet, waiting patiently for the science of the future to dig them up. Thank you for exploring this historical and genetic mystery with us. If you enjoyed discovering how modern science is rewriting the past, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring.